"You'll never make it," they said, with a certainty that pierced through me like an icy gust of wind. "You're nothing but a dreamer, always chasing after something that'll never be yours." The words, spoken by my own parents, dug far deeper than they could ever have realized. As they sat across from me, their faces hardened in disbelief, I felt a wave of hopelessness crash over me. I had always believed that my parents were the unwavering foundation beneath my feet, the ones who would always have my back, no matter what. But today, I could feel the cracks forming beneath me, and I was falling. "You'll never be anything more than someone who marries rich," my father sneered, his words dripping with condescension. "Forget about education. It's a waste of time for someone like you." I could see it in their eyes, their complete disdain for the things I cared about. They didn't understand. They never would. All they wanted from me was a future filled with opulent houses, designer clothes, and a rich, powerful husband. They believed that marrying into wealth was the ultimate achievement for someone like me, someone born into a life of luxury. They didn't care about the dreams I had, the intellectual pursuits I longed to immerse myself in. My heart sank with the crushing realization that they would never support me in the way I needed. They were making me choose between their approval and my own future. I had always fought against this notion, striving to prove them wrong, to show them that I was more than just a pawn in their social game. But with each passing day, I felt the weight of their expectations drag me down further. I was trapped, suffocated by the very people who should have been my protectors. And yet I couldn't bring myself to rebel completely. The guilt, the pressure to conform it, all seemed too much to bear. But then, there was him, Professor Samuel, my college professor, a Nobel Laureate in economics. To most, he would have seemed like an unlikely choice for me. He wasn't rich, not in the sense that my parents would have approved of. He didn't live in a mansion, nor did he frequent lavish parties. But he was brilliant, kind, and everything my parents would have despised. But for me, he was everything I had ever wanted. He represented everything that was beyond my parents' narrow world of wealth and superficiality. His intellect captivated me, and his deep understanding of the world filled me with a sense of awe. I felt seen in his presence, like someone who could understand my dreams and my struggles. But beyond that, he had a way of seeing into my soul. When I would ask questions in class, I could feel his attention, not just as a professor, but as a person who genuinely cared. He'd smile at me in a way that made me feel like I mattered, like my thoughts had weight. He was the first person who made me feel alive, who made me believe that I could achieve greatness on my own terms. The connection was undeniable. Every glance we shared, every conversation felt like an unspoken bond that neither of us dared to acknowledge. But in the quiet spaces between words, I could sense the pull. And despite all the warnings, all the consequences, a part of me couldn't help but want to be close to him. One evening after a lecture, he asked me to stay behind. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should be alone with him. But the moment I stepped into his office, I knew my life was about to change. The door clicked shut behind me, and the air seemed to thicken with unspoken words. "You have an extraordinary mind," he said, his voice warm and deep. "But don't let anyone tell you that you're meant to be something less than what you are." Those words echoed in my mind long after I left his office. I had spent so much of my life trying to live up to the expectations of others. But here, in this small office, I found someone who believed in me in a way I never thought possible. Samuel saw me for who I truly was, not just as a daughter or a student, but as a person with dreams and aspirations beyond the surface. As the days passed, the tension between us grew. I found myself looking for excuses to be near him, to spend more time in his presence, and he too seemed to seek me out. I caught him looking at me in a way that made my heart race, as if he was waiting for something, waiting for me to make a move, to take a leap of faith. But I couldn't ignore the growing pressure from my parents. The more I distanced myself from their expectations, the more they pushed. "You need to marry someone with power, with influence," my mother insisted. "You're wasting your potential, chasing after some professor who can't even offer you a comfortable life." Every word felt like a dagger to my heart, each one a reminder that I was failing them, that I was choosing the wrong path. I knew what they wanted from me, and yet I couldn't bring myself to conform. I had started to believe in something else, something greater than the life they had mapped out for me. I wanted a future built on my own merit, not on the shoulders of someone else's wealth. But the more I pulled away, the more my parents became relentless. They started talking about suitors men who could give me the life they believed I deserved. The men they introduced me to had money, power, and status, but none of them could offer me what Samuel did: respect, understanding, and the kind of love that didn't come with a price tag. It wasn't until one fateful evening that everything came crashing down. My parents sat me down in the living room, their faces grim, their voices filled with urgency. "There is someone we want you to meet," my father said, his tone more serious than I had ever heard. "He's a businessman, very successful. He'll provide for you in ways that Professor ever could." It felt like a betrayal in itself. They were pushing me towards someone they saw as an opportunity, someone to further their own ambitions. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about their desires, their social standing. My heart shattered as I realized how little they truly cared for my happiness. To them, I was a tool, a stepping stone in their game. I could feel the walls closing in around me, the suffocating weight of their expectations pressing down on my chest. I had to get away. I needed to escape this life, to live for myself. But just as I was about to leave, my mother's voice stopped me. "Do you think he loves you?" she asked, her words dripping with scorn. "That man is nothing but an old fool. He's using you just like everyone else." The betrayal in her voice stung worse than anything she had ever said to me. It wasn't just that she didn't understand me. It was that she didn't even care to try. I left the room that night, my head spinning, my heart in turmoil. The weight of my parents' betrayal crushed me, and I was left standing in the rubble of everything I'd once trusted. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been nothing more than a pawn in their game, a piece to be moved around and discarded when it no longer served their purpose. But as the shock faded, a new feeling began to take root: rage. The anger bubbled up inside me, slowly at first, like a quiet storm on the horizon. But soon it grew into something more. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. I wasn't going to let them decide my future, my happiness. I would take matters into my own hands. I knew the consequences of defying them, but I also knew that I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. I had to make them pay for the years of manipulation, for the dreams they tried to steal from me, for the love they tried to sell. The plan was beginning to take shape in my mind, though I didn't yet know exactly what it would look like. But one thing was certain: I would make them regret ever doubting me. But first, I needed to confront Samuel. I needed to know where I stood with him, to make sure that the man who had shown me what it meant to truly live wasn't just another lie I had been told. The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was for sure: my life was about to change forever. I had always believed that I could trust my parents, but their love for me would remain unshakable. But now, the very foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life was crumbling. They were no longer the loving guardians who had raised me with care. They had become strangers, manipulators of my destiny, willing to sacrifice my happiness for their own selfish gains. The weight of this realization crushed me, sinking deep into my chest. Each time I replayed their words in my mind, the sting grew sharper. "Marry rich. Forget your studies." The betrayal stung with a venom that curled around my heart like ice. How could they have been so heartless? How could they have pushed me away from everything I cared about, telling me that my dreams, my passions, were worthless? The anger and frustration began to bubble inside me like a relentless storm. I'd spent my entire life trying to meet their impossible expectations, bending myself into shapes I was never meant to fit. But now it was clear: they didn't care about me. They didn't care about my education, my goals, or my happiness. They only cared about their own ambitions, about maintaining their status in the world. And I was nothing more than a tool to help them achieve it. I thought back to all the moments I'd spent with them, all the times I had tried so hard to make them proud. The birthday parties where I'd smiled through clenched teeth, the family dinners where I pretended to enjoy the lavish dishes while feeling like an outsider in my own home. I remembered the times they'd sat me down, telling me about their expectations, how I was supposed to marry a man who could give me everything they thought I deserved. I'd never questioned it because I had always believed they knew best. But now the truth was clear. They didn't know anything about me, about what I wanted or who I wanted to become. And yet, I still longed for their approval. The pull to their love, no matter how warped it was hard to shake. But now, as I stared into the cold, empty space of my family's home, I knew I could no longer bend to their will. I couldn't let them define me. The betrayal felt like a tight knot in my stomach, one that I couldn't untangle no matter how hard I tried. I had spent my whole life trying to earn their love, trying to be the daughter they wanted, and now all I had was an empty space where trust used to reside. I turned to Samuel for comfort, for clarity. He had been my refuge, the one person who had always understood me, the one person who had seen past the mask I wore every day, the mask my parents had helped create. But now even Samuel seemed distant, a figure who was slipping further away from me with each passing day. I had always admired him for his intelligence, his quiet wisdom, his ability to see the world in ways others couldn't. He had become more than just a professor to me. He had become a guide, a mentor, someone who had made me feel like I mattered. He believed in me when no one else did. But as I sat in his office one evening, my mind spinning with the turmoil of my family's betrayal, I realized that even his kindness could not shield me from the reality of what was unfolding. "Is everything okay?" Samuel's voice broke through my thoughts, gentle and concerned. I looked up at him, my heart heavy with uncertainty. He had asked me that question so many times before, but now it felt like the words were laced with something more, something darker, something hidden beneath the surface. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. But Samuel saw through me. He always did. He stood up from behind his desk and came over to where I sat, his eyes filled with concern. "You know you can talk to me, right? Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust him, to believe that he was still the same man who had encouraged me to chase my dreams, who had told me that I was capable of achieving greatness, but something had changed. A seed of doubt had been planted in my mind, and it was growing fast. My voice trailed off as I searched for the right words. "I just don't know who to trust anymore." He watched me for a moment, his gaze thoughtful, as if considering something deeply important. "You can trust me," he said quietly. "I'm here for you. You always have a choice." I wanted to believe him, but the weight of everything, my parents' betrayal, the lies they had fed me, the growing sense that I was trapped in a web of deceit, was too much to bear. The emotions surged inside me, so intense and raw that I could hardly breathe. "I don't know what to do," I whispered, my voice breaking as the floodgates opened. Samuel stepped closer, placing a hand gently on my shoulder. "You don't have to decide everything right now, but you don't have to carry this alone. You never have to carry it alone." I nodded, but even as I did, the doubt continued to gnaw at me. Could I trust him? Could I trust anyone anymore? Or had I been blinded by my own desires, led astray by the very person I believed in most? As I walked out of his office that evening, the air felt thick with unspoken truths. The betrayal was no longer just about my parents. It had seeped into my relationship with Samuel, into everything I thought I understood about my own life. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that my entire world had been built on lies, on manipulation. I spent the following days in a fog, my mind clouded with confusion and doubt. My parents' voices echoed in my head, their words growing louder and more insistent with each passing day. "Marry rich. Forget about your studies. Forget about Samuel." But as I listened to their voices in my mind, another voice began to emerge, a voice that was softer but resolute. The voice that said I deserved more. I deserved a life built on my own terms, not dictated by the whims of others. I deserved to be free from the chains they had wrapped around me, free from the life they had planned for me. The rage inside me burned hotter now. The betrayal had awakened something in me, something I'd buried deep inside for so long. I had spent my whole life living for others, trying to meet expectations that were never mine to fulfill. But now, I was done. I was done pretending. I was done allowing them to control me. I didn't know exactly how I was going to get back at them, but I knew one thing. I would make them regret ever underestimating me. They thought they could control my life, that they could decide my future, but they were wrong. I was going to take back what they had stolen from me, and I wasn't going to stop until I had taken everything they valued most. But even as the plan began to take shape in my mind, I felt a heavy weight in my chest. This wasn't just about getting revenge, it was about something deeper. It was about reclaiming my power, my identity, my sense of self. It was about finally breaking free from the lies and the manipulation that had defined my life for so long. As the days passed, the pieces of the plan fell into place. But there was one thing I couldn't ignore. Every step I took toward my revenge was a step away from everything I had ever known. My family, Samuel, my entire world, they were all part of the life I was leaving behind. And as much as I wanted to exact my revenge, a small part of me ached with the knowledge that I was losing everything I had ever loved. I stood in front of the mirror one night, my heart heavy with the weight of the decision I had made. There was no turning back now. I had chosen my path, and I was going to walk it no matter the cost. The final words of Samuel's comforting voice echoed in my mind. You always have a choice. I took a deep breath and made the choice. I was going to take matters into my own hands. It wouldn't be easy and it wouldn't be painless, but I was going to make them feel the weight of their betrayal. And so the path to my revenge began, even though the cost would be higher than I could ever have imagined.